Since the late 90s, Shawn Tuma has been working with legal departments and security teams at the intersection of law and technology. This has given him a unique perspective for how these important defenders work well together and do not work well together, and what a difference that can make with how their organizations manage cyber risk. This led him to write a book called the GC+CISO Connection to help start a dialogue and strengthen the partnership between these critically important roles. The next step is to bring together people who understand these roles to share their experiences and continue the dialogue. Because none of us have all the answers, it is through conversations like these that we can all improve how we work together to improve cyber resilience. This is the GC+CISO Connection Show.
Hello and welcome to the GC+CISO Connection Show. I'm your host, Shawn Tuma. Joining me today is my good friend, Andy Land.
Good to see everybody.
And Andy is more in tune with the CISO community than anybody I know. He's the general manager of the CISO Executive Network. And Andy and I had a wonderful conversation this morning for about three and a half hours.
4 hours, yeah.
And Andy, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you. I love that you said I'm in tune with better than anyone else.
You really are. I mean, that's your job.
Well,
is you go around the country talking to CISOs and helping them work through the issues they face. And I love that's perfect for what we do here.
No, it's not, honestly, when I think about what I do, it's a privilege because I get to work with the two sides that kind of why you wrote the book, Shawn. It's like we work with obviously chief information security officers from across the country. But part of our model in the CISO Executive Network is we have a legal update. And that's how for those that don't know, that's how I met Shawn. And Shawn does the legal update at all of our roundtables. And there's a strong connection, obviously, between the legal and the CISO. And I don't think always people make that connection.
No, they don't. And Andy, and I know we've talked about this a little before. And for those of you who may have heard the episode with Ian Schneller, it was actually a conversation I had with Ian before one of the morning meetings of the CISO ExecNet, that Ian and I were talking about his relationship with legal. And it was that, along with several other conversations I had at that time, that led to me writing the book.
And I love that. I mean, it's one of the great outcomes of what I get to do is one, I get to meet people like you, but I get to connect you with people like with Ian and all the other CISOs in just the Dallas community for you. And also Shawn works with us in the Austin community also, which has been great. So he's get to expand the knowledge of our members down there also. But like you said, it's those connections, but learning how they think, which I know spurred you on to like, wow, there's something here. We're missing something between legal and the CISO that's got to get repaired.
Yeah. It's how do we build that bridge? How do we foster that relationship? But Andy, before we get into the substance, I want you to tell folks, what is CISO ExecNet? This is a big year for y'all.
Yeah.
And what is your mission?
Sure.
What is the purpose of what you're doing?
Thanks, Shawn. So yes, Andy Land with the CISO Executive Network. The network is a 20-year-old CISO community. And that's crazy to say because when 20 years ago, there weren't a lot of people even called CISO. And that's really an emergence over the last 20 years. But it is a big year for us as we expand. And you asked about our mission. And I look at what Bill Sieglein, our founder, and I do is a very mission-based idea, which is to get the CISOs together to network in a natural environment where they can really share ideas and learn things like we've talked about today, and we'll talk about more. But I guess if you want to use a tagline, Bill and I like to say the CISO is our mission, our purpose. That's why we exist, to help that grow and foster that community. And like Shawn said, we've been fortunate enough to build 27 of these chapters across the U.S., and I'm very fortunate that I run the Dallas one and get to know Shawn and the crew here.
Yeah, I mean, and look, if anybody that knows me, the security people, the security community, that's my community. I love being with security folks. I love all the security events. I love to go to the nice dinners. I love to go to the fun conferences and be a part of that, and I'm very thankful for it. But what really, to me, makes what you do different is we don't have as much social. We have a little bit of social.
Yeah.
We're talking and we're friends and everybody used to know each other. But we're deep diving.
Right.
We're getting into stuff that honestly, as a lawyer, and I've been doing this a while, but I'm still just a lawyer, I come out of there and my head hurts from the depth of the conversations. We're talking about real education,
right.
real learning here.
No, I love that. That's our goal. You nailed it. And Shawn coined a term a few years ago that I've stolen. I hope that's okay. And you said, well, you really attract the cerebral CISO, someone who really wants to dive deep. And hey, there's nothing wrong with a steak dinner or drinking a good beer. You're not going to do that at CISO Executive Network. We are the breakfast people. We'll give you a nice breakfast. But most of the morning, we are spent really deep diving into the topics and really, if we succeed or fail, it's always when we succeed, it's because at the end of any meeting, just what happened to you happens to every one of our CISOs. Here's who I need to go meet. Here's a new process I need to put in place. Here's someone I need to go get in touch with. Here's a new vendor I need to talk to. 2 to 3 action items should come out of every meeting. Yeah. When they don't, I feel like that's a personal failure for me.
I mean, you're sitting there listening to someone from a major corporation or a major financial institution talking about the challenges they're facing and how they're dealing with that and the lessons they're learning. Those are takeaways that are real life that you go back to your organization and you're like, hey, I need to do this. If they're having to do this, I need to do this,
Agreed.
Like those kind of things. And that's what I really love about it.
Well, even more so, it's somewhat of a benchmarking too, right? It's like, I am doing that, but he's somehow doing it better. She's doing that and it's working. Why is it not working for me, right? Yeah. Or I need to go try that thing that I've never tried before. But since that company's smaller than me, they've kind of figured it out. Now I'm a larger company and I can go try it and see if it'll work for me. So there's a lot of learning and experimentation too. I like to think about a lot of our members are tinkerers, experimenters. Mm-hmm. And so when they come to our roundtables, there's the opportunity to figure out what's the next experiment. What's the next thing I tinker on? And also your part of that's important too, because they don't always know the next step for what they should do legally, or, they know they need to be, working better with their general counsel and inside counsel, but they don't always know how. Yeah. I think that's one of the things you always do great at our roundtables is give them a bit of the how on, here's how I would approach that legal problem.
Here's how to go talk to them.
Right, exactly.
And help them know you're on the team. And that's why I wrote the book is take a copy of this book. I feel
like singing like I wrote the book.
No, the point is to say, hey, if you don't know them, here's 2 copies of this book. Take it, go introduce yourself. Say, hey, this guy gave me this today, some schmuck lawyer, whatever. But at least start talking about it. And if you start that conversation, you might actually like each other. And then you might find you got a lot of things in common. And then you start building a relationship. And when you build that relationship, bam.
Well, you said something interesting there. Take a copy of the book to your GC, and if you're one of our CISOs. And the reason I say that is those kind of things are great icebreakers because we do a lot of them at our meetings, at our roundtables. What can we do to get people to really engage with each other and really try to learn together? I think an interesting thing would be almost like go to your GC, give them the copy of the book, you have your copy, and almost make it a book club.
Yeah, I mean, look, each chapter has talking points, things to collaborate on to get your conversation started.
Right.
And that was the purpose. But Andy, one thing I want to make sure, because a lot of people may not know this about you, because you come across as this great, sales guy. You're just, I knew we would not have to prepare for this because neither one of us are at a loss for words, right? But you've done a little bit in this space. Like, tell people about your background.
Sure.
You've been in the trenches.
Yeah, our founder Bill is a CISO, so he formed it from the CISO perspective. I met him about 10 years ago, so I've been doing this for 10 years, which is scary to say, think to myself. But I was on the product side as a vendor, spent most of my career in product management, and I joke I spent most of my career in the identity and access management industry. I joke I probably built every bad product that you've thrown away by now, but it learned a lot along the way. And I progressed in my career and worked in other places, data security, cloud security as cloud was coming out. And I'm pretty well rounded in all things security. I joke a lot of times with people, I say I'm a subject matter expert, but put the little e instead of the higher case E, make it lowercase e. But I'm pretty well rounded in security, just having played around with so many of these products. And I used the word tinker earlier. I like to tinker and understand products. I love the industry. I just love understanding the congruent parts. Like when you see in our industry, what one of the big guys by another guy. I'm trying to break that down. What are they getting out of that? Why did they do that? And I try to help our members understand the value they're going to get. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's a value of, as you see these Lego parts being put together.
Think about what someone said this morning that was so brilliant, and we're going to rip it off now.
Yeah.
Were the ingredients searching for the recipe?
Oh, that was one of the most awesome
that was
quotes.
deep. You know, we have the ingredients. We're searching for the recipe.
Yeah, it's true. And I think a lot of our members are searching for the recipe. And that's one of the reasons to come to our roundtables, because you're going to have some people that have some of the right ingredients. They might even have part of the recipe correct. They might even bake the good cookie, so to speak, right? So how did they do it? Same thing I like I said, from the legal perspective, they get to learn from you. Like today, you did a great job talking about kind of zero trust and what's happening in AI. Our members cannot keep up with all that. I mean, there's too many things too many moving parts. So every time at one of our roundtables, when they get a legal update from you, there's a consistent approach, and they need that. We all need it. It's one of the best things we all learn from you. You learn from us. Like you said, it's the whole focus of your book is you come to our roundtables to learn from our CISOs. Guess what? They're learning from you at every meeting, and that congruency is what makes a meeting great.
It's really one of the most fundamental things we in this industry all have to understand, and that is humility.
Oh, absolutely.
That none of us have all the answers. We have to be humble and receptive and willing to learn and actively trying to learn, because our world is changing so fast, technologically, strategically, legally, and politically. It's just a struggle.
Well, good example today. You said, if just from the legal perspective, you showed some immense amount of AI regulations that are in some theory or process. But then in the one sense, I know our members have asked, well, didn't the President of the United States sign an executive directive saying you don't have to worry about all that stuff? And then you said, no, you got to worry about that stuff. So
it didn't just make them go away.
Exactly. But that's the kind of stuff that sometimes I think people are going through, and it's very unclear. It's like, on the one sense, are the states regulating this, or is the feds regulating this? And if they're not regulating, I know Europe's regulating it. You know what I mean? So
all of the above. Check D for all of the above, right?
Exactly.
Because it really is. So how do I? And then the one person that asked, I have all this Venn diagram of all these things. Where do I focus? Focus in the middle first,
right?
And then let's build out.
Yeah, and I always think you do a good job, and it fits well with our theory of how we built the network, pragmatism. Mm-hmm. You said the word humility. I think start with that. If you come to our roundtables, come with an open mind and humility that you don't know everything, and then take a pragmatic mindset of, what can I achieve? Because I think every one of our roundtables is about trying to achieve a better program and also a better CISO. As you know, today we talked about CISO persona, and that was geared toward how do we make you as a human being better? Mm-hmm. Like, because I think about that at every roundtable. How do I get better as a moderator, as a leader? And I learned from all of you guys how to do that.
Yeah, Andy, what I really love that you said this morning, and this is something that I don't want to say the word sold myself, but in a sense, I guess I am, is someone that's handled a lot, seen a lot from the strategic perspective. I've seen a lot that most people don't get to see, right? And I get to bring the value of that. One of the reasons I really wanted to get you to have this conversation with me is you're talking to hundreds of CISOs about issues that they're dealing with, and you're seeing this from a very big picture strategic perspective. Then I want to talk about, because I think you can share insight that most people aren't going to have. We talked about resilience today. I know that's such a big buzzword, right? From the things you're learning from the CISO community, what does that mean to you?
Yeah, I mean, a few things. First off, great transition is I use the word privilege a lot. I'm very privileged to get in front of sometimes 400 to 500 CISOs in 4 weeks. Yeah. And I kind of joke, there's some major analyst firms that they probably don't talk to 400 CISOs in a year.
That's right.
And I get the privilege of doing that in 400 to 500 in 4 weeks. As we go through a series, we see all the nitty gritty of how our members are having to deal with different topics. And like you said, resiliency is one that's popped up a lot. I mentioned it today at the roundtable. When CrowdStrike hit, I think a lot of our members realized how unresilient they were.
I've done everything right.
Yeah.
And I'm down.
Yeah, and I'm down. Exactly. And I think a word that I like that I heard earlier this week, and it came up again today, is I'm untested, but they don't mean that they have not done executive tabletops. They don't mean I haven't worked with my attorneys. They don't mean any of that. They mean I haven't taken a bullet directly. They don't know until they know, I guess is what I'm saying. And that's what I think most of our members are today. They're putting in place all the right controls. A lot of them are working well with their GCs. We talked about this earlier. Too many are not working well with their GCs, but most of our folks are doing all the basics right and a lot of the key things correctly. But none of them, you heard it today, one of the key words was paranoid. Yeah. A lot of our members are not sure, and that's a bad feeling. The old "can you sleep at night" theory. I think most of our members sleep at night well, only because they know they could pass the reasonable test, which you often talk about, Shawn, in our roundtables. But they're worried about it. I think resiliency today is as good as you can make it under a budget, right? Yeah. You're never going to spend every dollar the corporation makes on security.
Well, yeah, that's right. Because our mission of the organization is not security. Our mission is the business.
Yep. It's to make widgets. It's to produce a great service. Whatever you do great for a living, security has got to be in its box, right?
Yeah. And I mean, I had a visit with a GC recently who was frustrated. And part of my role with this GC is going to be to help bridge the gap with their CISO, because their CISO will not collaborate and focuses only on my job is security. Right. My job is security. I don't need to care about anything else. And we're going to have to work together to overcome some of that.
And that's interesting, because I would say today, one of the things we coach our CISO members on are, yes, your title is Chief Information Security Officer. You're a leader in the company first and foremost. You are a business leader. Often we try to put ourselves in the box too much. We're an IT leader or we're a security leader. I think the CISOs that are going to survive and do well in the future are business leaders. Yeah. And they can span, we've talked about this before, they can be put in front of the board. Yeah. And there's a confidence level. And I think the folks that want to get that next layer of job and move up, that's where you need to work on and examine yourself most, is like, are you ready to present yourself at a level that the board wants you there, not tolerates you there?
You are instead of your identity being I'm the security guy, your identity is I am a business guy, but I have an expertise in security.
Key word there, expertise. Yep. I agree with you. You are an expert in cyber. In fact, many of our members often, and I know they've probably come to you and talked to you about this too, want to be board members at some point. They want to be, and that would be great. I think they should be. But then they'll always think it's because they have cyber expertise. It's like, no, that's not what's going to make you a board member. They're going to get you a board member because you also know gap accounting. You also know how their marketing systems work. You know how the sales chain works. You know the business outcomes. You don't just know how to do security. They can hire anyone to be the security expert. A board member needs to be a well-rounded, well-understood of their business, right?
God, that's such a great point, Andy. And one of the topics we talked about a few years ago that I purposefully wanted to address in the book was, this dovetails right into that, reporting of the CISO.
Right.
Who does the CISO report to, right? There's all these different ideas and theories, and I had my own that I wrote about. And then later, in talking with one of the members, he said, it didn't work well because of budgetary issues. We can't do that.
If they work for IT, right?
That's right, exactly. What are you seeing as kind of the trends? What works well? I know the CISOs probably want a direct line. Right. But is that, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, great question, Shawn. Actually, most of our CISO members today would say, first and foremost, they just want a good boss. Yeah. Someone who's highly supportive of security. So start with that. That could be the CIO, could be the CTO, could be the chief risk officer, could be the general counsel. We have members today that report to the general counsel. I think they care less about that reporting structure and more, to your point, do I get the support I need? Can I get the budget I need? Is this taken seriously? Is there a culture that takes security seriously? If they don't have that, it doesn't really matter who they report to. They're going to fail, right?
Yeah. And so we've got the who do they report to on one side.
Right.
And then we got that big issue that's been around for several years now of who's going to get blamed and CISO liability.
Yeah, we talked about it today.
We talked about it today. What are you hearing from the CISOs? I mean, I gave my impression, right? Yeah. These are kind of edge cases. other than a few regulations like NYDFS or
Right.
SEC, the new reporting rules, things like that, probably not as much reason to fear
Right.
as I've seen. But I know they feel differently.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because I would say it's funny. Go back in time a little bit after Uber, and then right after Tim Brown. I can't tell you the amount of members that came to me and said, "I don't want to be a CISO anymore. I've got to get out of this job.
Yeah.
I cannot have personal, liability for decisions I make that are on the corporate, behalf, trying to do my job well, and it somehow come back to me." So I think there's been a sense of huge relief that neither one of these things have, like you said, they've become edge cases, not the norm. I think there's always, anybody that's a CISO is paranoid by nature.
That's their nature.
Right.
They're protective.
So they're all worried about that. What's the next case that could come? But I think you've done a really good job of, at least in this chapter in Dallas, of making sure the members know, hey, this isn't probably the norm. I'd say we've gotten back to more of an even keel, but maybe the best way to say it is they all ask questions like, now they want to be on directors and officers insurance. Mm-hmm. Should I have my own attorney that's outside the corporate? You've got these questions. So they're all trying to hedge their bets. Mm-hmm. That's where I'd say it is a little bit right now. I'm going to trust the corporation, and that I'm not going to get, personally sued, but I'm also ready. I know what to do now. I didn't know what to do or how to think about this a year and a half ago. And I think they're prepared type of people. That's what they make risk management decisions, right? So they're making a risk management decision about their own career.
That's right. That's right. They're preparing the contingency plan.
Exactly. They are. Most of them, I think that's where they are a year and a half, 2 years after those things. They have a contingency plan. They have a backup plan. They know what they're going to do if this happens to them.
Yeah. And I know you've explained to them this morning that the time to cover this is when you're negotiating that new job.
Oh, absolutely.
That raise these points, talk about these issues.
You can certainly, within your current job, I've had many members go back and get, directors and officers or things that they need to make them feel more comfortable in the job. But certainly you have, as a CISO, you have a certain, when you're going to take a new job, they want you want them. You have more negotiating power, more leverage. That's the time to discuss a lot of these liability issues. Yeah. And that is also a time, I would definitely make sure you consult someone like Shawn, as an outside consultant, if you will, make sure you know what you're getting into. Right?
Yeah, and we've had, I've had several GCs on the show,
right,
who will talk openly about this and say, yeah, we're welcome this conversation when we're in the interview process. But what they may not understand is whether you're going to be covered by D&O insurance pertains to what's your corporate structure.
Right.
Because a lot of these companies have been around for 100 years, or 70 years. The CISO title didn't exist.
Right.
So having them in the corporate, not minutes, the corporate
like bylaws and things like that,
and the agreement and things like that, they're not covered. So you may have to amend it or something like that, or get indemnification, or get a separate CISO insurance policy.
Yeah.
And they have those out there. But have the conversation, right?
That's the key.
Communication.
Yeah, it is. I mean, and I think where you're going with there is the new CISO, if there's such a thing, is going to have to be a much better communicator than I think maybe they had to be 5 years ago, certainly 10 years ago, because your responsibility to communicate is much different. You probably have board communication responsibilities. You certainly have executive level communication responsibilities. You certainly have general counsel level. And those audiences are all different. And you've got to learn the language of them. Unfortunately, this is the one thing I feel bad for our CISO members. Nobody's learning the language of CISO. Nobody's going to the school to learn the language.
They're not learning to communicate with the CISO.
They're not doing that. They're expecting you to learn how to speak to them. And in some cases, that's okay, because the language of business, if you're a business leader, shouldn't you be how to speak, business? But I do think I feel bad sometimes that they can't learn how to be a lawyer unless they, are a lawyer, but they sometimes have to figure out how to speak to a GC. And again, I think that's the crux of your book is how to
chapter in there
how
about
to make,
how to talk to each other.
Yeah, I think it's very difficult to tell you. But if you went back to it earlier, all conversation starts with starting.
Yeah.
So take them the book.
Take them the book.
Or however you need to do it. Just do it. Make that conversation. Make that hallway, take them to lunch. It's all dumb stuff. Sometimes the simplest thing.
Go get a beer.
Exactly.
Go get breakfast together. Have coffee. Because if you start talking, you start working through all these issues. And you don't have the friction many times that we find exists. And, Andy, one of the things that really strikes me is for so many years, people thought of the great CISO as being the great technical expert.
Right.
Yep. And we're learning that really it's more, can you evolve or mature from being a technical expert to a business leader, a business communicator that still knows how to communicate with your technical side, right? But that goes into the personalities and the personas. And one of the things I love today is you're helping CISOs understand themselves better and understand how to improve themselves as a professional through this new game that you and Bill came up with.
Yeah, it was a little bit fun today. Shawn was there. We built a CISO persona test purposely, but it was meant to be a game. We're not scientists. We joked we're not the Myers-Briggs folks or whatever, but we built a little gamification around CISO persona. But it was fun. It got the conversation going on. What kind of CISO are you? Are you a firefighter? Are you a builder? Are you a maintainer? Are you a transformer? And we didn't go with what you want to be. Like in other words, don't think aspirationally. What are you now? But then it's okay to think about what you want to be. But I think that's the biggest part is as they navigate their careers, what are you? Are you going to, do you want to change? Maybe you're a firefighter today and it's just by the nature of the company you're at, but maybe you want to be a transformer. Well, then you got to find that right organization that wants a transformer. You know what I mean? You got to match.
But you got to start by understanding yourself.
I agreed, 100%.
And the starting point for today's conversation is, hey, do you understand yourself? Because like I mentioned, several years back, I did a speech at Secure World on personalities and psychology and cybersecurity based upon my own assessment of what I've experienced working with these clients. And, you have your own tendencies of what you love and what you thrive on. And a lot of people were builders and, things like that. But if you know your strengths, then you can learn your weaknesses. And then you can focus on improving your weaknesses to be more complete.
Agreed. And I think it goes back to, use a word you said earlier today, humility.
Yeah.
To look at yourself, you have to have humility, right? Because you have to really look at yourself and understand who you are, what your flaws are, what your strengths are. And then you can package that into, what you are today. And then you could look at, do I want to close gaps? Like going back to our conversation earlier about, talking to the board, maybe you're not equipped to do that today. That doesn't mean you can't be equipped to do that. But you got to really take a fundamental look at yourself and say, what would it take for me to be able to do that? How do I work better with these different constituencies? I know a lot of today we've been talking about how to work better with legal, but it is really about how do I just work better with all these different constituencies? Because time and again, I think our members tell Bill and I, our culture is what's holding me back.
Yeah.
Well, you have a big impact on that culture. Certainly you're not the CEO. They have the number one impact. But you certainly as a leader, as a CISO, have a big impact on the culture. And so you got to decide how you're going to utilize that. Yeah. And where your personality fits and your communication style fits to make a change, right? And if you find you can't do that at all, then maybe you're just at the wrong place. Mm-hmm. And that's okay. That's okay to move to the next place.
So maybe you're not approaching it right because you don't understand it yet.
Totally right.
And you need to. And, that whole self-improvement thing. I mean, Andy, a lot of people don't know this about me. In law school, before law school, and as a young lawyer, I was scared to death to speak in public.
Wow.
I
never thought
the greatest fear of public speaking. I would tremble and almost pass out from the fear of it. But when you recognize it and then you make an effort to work on it, you may still suck at it. And a lot of people probably think I do.
Well, we'll let you guys be the judge of that today.
Hey, y'all be the judge of that. But if you're still listening, then Andy's carrying the load here, right? But the thing is, you can overcome it, and you may never be, the greatest at it, but you can be competent to not have that be your downfall. But, speaking of concerns and boards and issues, humility, something that's humbling everybody right now, and we're not getting out of here without talking about it, is artificial intelligence.
Oh, man.
AI is taking the world by storm, and I know the CISOs, they're on the front lines of this. What are you hearing from them with AI?
Well, it's funny. When ChatGPT blew up, I guess it's almost 3 years ago, when I would just call it, literally everybody started using it, and the CISO and all security was not caught off guard, but certainly by the speed. It was much quicker. because it was different than like open source software, which was mostly in like the development community. This was like any administrator, any marketing person could go use this tool and you didn't even know they were using it. And the natural tendency of all CISOs at that point was block it, stop it. Bill and I saw within like a 5-week period when ChatGPT really blew up, where our CISOs were saying block it, stop it, to I got to enable it. The business is most important, and that's really where we are today. I think most of our members look at AI as I have to figure out how to get the business to be able to use it, get success out of it, competitive differentiation, but I need some level of guardrails. We called it, I think you saw it in the series today, we called it the 3 Gs. We need governance around AI. I think of that as the rules, if you will, the umbrella. You live in the governance land.
Governance is such an intimidating word, but ultimately it just means controlling it.
Right. And then underneath that, the other 2 Gs that we felt like from our members that were important were guidance. So people are using this stuff. Tell them how you want them to use it. Give them the things you want them to use it. A great member in Houston said a couple of times ago when we talked about AI, we have an app for that. Meaning they have an app that is, either their version of ChatGPT or, Copilot or whatever that you're supposed to use. Use ours. Don't go use somebody else's. And the third one's guardrails, because let's face it, people may not know the rules. Even if they know the rules, they don't always follow the rules. So you have to have guardrails. What can you do? I think of it, like I said today, as when you go bowling, the little kids, they put up the guard.
I love that. I love that. Yeah.
So we keep the ball going still toward the pins, because that's what ultimately, we're not going to stop this stuff. The business is getting too much value out of it, and they want to get value out of it.
For sure.
And we also don't want the business to stop experimenting, because every great corporation, most things they fall into. You know what I mean? They didn't design that. They were like, we tried something and oh my God, that works. Let's do it. Yeah. And I think that's what's happening with AI today. A lot of people are tinkering, experimenting. And so I think that's, our members want to enable that. That's what I've seen, but their job is to make sure it doesn't go bad.
Man, I love your analogy of the guardrails for the little kids at the bowling alley, right? Because
you got a lot of kids. You got a lot of kids first off.
So I've been through this. And if you don't have the guardrails up, they're paranoid. They're scared when they throw the ball and it's going to hit the gutter every time. But if they know the guardrails are there, they have this sense of security that, hey, I can try it. And I don't have to worry as much. I love that.
Well, that's also, it's funny, you caught into that faster than I did. I was thinking a bit more from protecting them from themselves, but you also went into a psychology there of our users. If you give them that sense of security and safety, they're more willing to utilize something, but they're going to utilize it more appropriately. And that's what that's the word I would say our CISOs want today: appropriate use of AI.
Yeah.
It's the inappropriate use of AI that scares them and also is going to typically cause our security risks.
Because ultimately, they're responsible for what happens within their environment.
Doesn't matter if it was supposed to be or not supposed to be. If it happens, it's on their watch. I'm an ex-Navy officer, so I always kind of think about it was on my watch. It's my problem, right?
Yes.
I'm accountable.
So all of this has fallen into their laps.
Yep.
And are you hearing anything out of them on? Are they looking for other roles? Are they looking for their roles to change with AI? Are they looking for a chief AI officer? What would make their lives easier?
It's a good question. First off, on the role thing, is kind of funny, a little sidestep, because we talked about resiliency today. Bill and I are really on to this thing. We think your role is really the CISRO, Chief Information Security and Resiliency. I know you want to put risk there, but Bill and I think you should put resiliency there, officer, because the business cares about risk. But businesses are willing to take risk, as you know, Shawn. But resiliency, the business has to operate. Yeah. They have to be resilient. So we thought that's a name that you should go for. As far as AI, I'd say a lot of corporations right now are hiring a chief AI officer, or it falls under the chief data officer, another communication line. Because now our CISOs, besides having to talk to the GC and the CIO and other folks, they do have to deal with the folks that own AI or own the data that's flowing into AI. Because it's, as you know, it's all about the data.
It's all about
that's where it fits. What did you used to say? You have
data is the hot potato.
There you go.
We got a chapter.
Where's your cup? We need your
data is the hot potato.
We need Shawn's mug. I've seen his mug, by the way. It's awesome.
Yeah, no, that's so great, Andy. And man, it kills me that I look at the timer and we're running at the end here.
No worries.
But we could talk about this all day, which is why we talk about it for almost 4 hours
Exactly.
this morning,
We had
right?
4 hours this morning.
And it was a conversation really a lot like this, but with a lot smarter people in the room than us.
That was nice having everybody there,
really
wasn't it?
is.
Yeah.
But Andy, as we come to a close, thinking about the CISOs that aren't taking the effort maybe or don't know to come get the benefit of these conversations, what would be maybe one piece of advice you could give them on just how to improve themselves within their organization and how to maybe better work with their legal team, their CFO, their other executives?
Right.
And then for the other executives like the legal team or the CFO or whomever, what would be a piece of advice you could give them?
Right. Yeah. From the CISO side, I think that word humility that we started today, be humble, be okay with not knowing everything, be okay with being open, which means open conversations with your general counsel, with other members of the management team. I mean, sometimes the truth does hurt you. It is true. We know where people have gotten burned, but most of the time it doesn't. That's right. Most of the time doing the right thing is the right thing. So if you keep doing the right thing, I think you're gonna make progress. I think one of the ways you can maybe broach some of that is do get involved in the community, whether it's our network or not. It doesn't matter. There's plenty of great things out there. Get involved in something where you can hear from your peers how they're doing this, because that's going to give you some coaching of how to make those first steps. If you're not ready to jump fully in the pool, but you know how you dip your toe in the water, dip your toe in the water. But if you're not ready for that, find somebody that can tell you how to do that and then do it. From the legal side, it's interesting. I always think the attorneys, I hope, will be open to the conversations. And I think that's where I'm hoping that you're coaching that side of the fence, because I think our members are seeking that advice. They want that advice. They want to work together. I think sometimes their frustration is they don't know how to talk to the lawyer. And I'm sure the lawyers on the other side are sometimes like, I don't understand a word they're saying.
They don't.
Right?
We each have our own language.
Right. And so I think that's also the side of it. Both sides probably have to meet a little bit, but I would say on our side, the CISO side, I think you're going to have to go more than 50%. You don't maybe have to go 100% there, but you're going to have to go 75% of the way there to get the legal team to really understand what's going on here so that they can help you. But if you think of it from they can help you, the best CISOs I've seen have legal as their champions at board meetings, at executive meetings, and those folks, they're getting more budget because the legal team's on their side. When a bad risk comes up, the legal team saying, we can't take on that risk. It's not them saying no, because all of you guys, all of our CISO members are always getting, I don't want to be Mr. No, NO. Yeah. And I said, well, there's good ways to stop that. And one is you got to work with your GC. You got to work with your outside counsel. They can help you. They can help you convey risk, because that's what they do for a living, right?
Absolutely that. It's risk and resilience, is what we're all coming back to at the end of the day, because our real mission is making the business.
That's it. Making the business better, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Andy, thank you so much for joining me here today. This was a lot of fun.
It was great.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you enjoyed it, please be sure to share it with others. Tell people about the wonderful opportunities in the community to get involved, such as with Andy and the CISO Executive Network. And just really thank you for your time listening, and hope you have a great day and catch you next time. Bye-bye.